Welcome to episode 1 of the Driven to Learn podcast with myself, Coretta Lemetra. I am so excited to start sharing the resources that I have gathered and to help you make your counseling office exactly what you want it to be, to meet kids where you want to meet them at and help them build the absolutely incredible, inspiring lives that they can. So today we're going to start with one of my favorite topics because it's one of the most powerful tools that I've come across. And the reason this podcast is called Driven to Learn is because every single one of us is driven to learn. It's part of being a human being. From the time we're a baby to the time that we die, we are learning. And I think sometimes that gets a little bit lost because we have expressions like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's just not true. Sure, our learning changes with time, but people are always learning. And it might take longer, but let's be honest, not everybody learns the same things the same way throughout life anyway. One student might pick up math concepts super quickly. Another one, it takes them a lot of time where they might need a different approach. And there's different approaches to do math. So we're all driven to learn. But our society here in the US can often drive students to learn in a harsh and dramatic way that can often extinguish that desire to learn, or at least mute it and get in the way of students' true long-term, grounded, healthy, happy success. And you want the best for your students. You want the best for your students. And the contradictory reality is that pressure is really, really good, but only to a point, right? Pressure can create diamonds and it can crush them too. So through all of my work, which has been I've been tutoring, I've been teaching, I've been mentoring and coaching in many forms for the last 16 years. Very first one was when I was teaching violin, and I have since taught ESL to Arabic speakers and Chinese speakers, all the way from 3-year-olds to 50-year-olds. I have worked with transitioning military who are figuring out how to go from being in the military their whole adult careers to being a civilian and navigating how to do that, who to be, and how to make themselves, how to find the jobs that they want and redefine their identities outside of the military. I've also been working as an ACT and SAT coach, and most recently got credentialed as a registered behavioral technician, RBT, which enables me to work with students with autism, to work on behavioral challenges. Back about, oh gosh, how the time goes. Let's see. Back right after college, for the last couple years of college, well, actually all through college, I was studying Arabic. I studied politics in the Middle East because I've always wanted to understand how humans tick and our relationships. I was always really fascinated by that. And that work took me to the Middle East to work in peace building and conflict transformation. And so I would work with communities that were in conflict with each other and had experienced a lot of trauma. Yeah, it was very heavy work, but it was also really, really interesting work and very valuable. And after that, I decided to move to Colombia and work with former militants who were trying to rejoin their communities after participating in a war. So all through these experiences, the common thread is people. And we are shockingly similar to each other in our fundamental needs. But what I find really interesting is learning what makes learning possible. and what helps people thrive. A lot of our educational systems that we have, and I mean, each school is very, very different, so it really depends on what school you're in, but every school can do better by their students. And one thing that we can do better is slowing down. There's this pressure to teach students everything in the years that they're in a school, right? We have this sense of responsibility to them, and also there's the pressure to make the school look good, of course. But ironically, the truth is we're never going to teach students everything that they're going to need to know for their life. They're going to learn their entire lives. So ideally, we set students up to be learners, to love learning, to be creative, to be confident, right? Not to know, okay, I can do math one day, but to know, hey, if I come across something hard, I trust myself. I know how to ask for help. I'm really good at coming up with creative solutions. If something is hard, that's okay. I've done hard things before. It's not, it's never one size fit all, because humans are too diverse for that. And I think the first and most important element to that is slowing down. The reason for this is both for you and for your students, right? If we don't slow down, we burn out. That's true for you, and that's true for your students, and especially in the college prep process. And that's where I coach students in a lot in the ACT and SAT prep space. There's a lot of pressure. And there's this idea that there is this very tight timeline. And as they're doing APs, they're doing all of their classes, they're doing their extracurriculars, they're figuring out where they want to apply to, who they are as people. They're dealing with hormones raging through their bodies, friendship dynamics, the anxiety of their parents, perhaps about, what the college prep process looks like. There's a lot happening. There's just so much input. And beyond that, they're on their phones. They're picking up on whatever's going on in politics, whatever's going on in the tech space, whatever's going on in their social media feeds. It's just a lot of information, and it's overwhelming. And the reality is they have one life to live, and they're looking to you to guide them. And they might get into their dream college. I hope they do. And, you can do everything you can to support them. They might not, but they can build an incredible life regardless. And part of the power of a student who's prepared for college is knowing that they can handle what comes at them, even if it's really hard. So anxiety, for one, is contagious. They experience anxiety from the news, from their friends, from their parents. If they can come into your office and experience a moment of spaciousness, where their nervous system just gets to relax and they get to be seen as a person, they know, okay, this counselor cares. You care. You actually know them. And it doesn't matter if you don't know everything about them. You're not going to. It's not realistic. The point is that in just a couple minutes, we can tell if somebody is genuinely curious about us as a person. And it matters, right? Give them a space to be anxious if they need to share some anxieties, and be safe. Model safety. And there's many ways you can do that. But the most important thing to do is slow down. Because if they feel like everything is a crisis, and we as a society tend to treat a lot of things like they're a crisis when they're not. They're not a crisis. But we're on edge so much, and we're comparing ourselves to each other, and these kids are doing it, right? They're wondering, they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I need to get into the right school. I need to get the perfect grades. I need to have my life planned." But the thing is, they're not going to have their life planned. They're going to figure it out like we all do. And the best they can do is to be a kind, well-researched, creative, adaptable person, right? And the more they can do that in college application process, the more successful they will be, because they will ask questions that they genuinely care about. They will take the time and do the research. They won't burn out. When we get overwhelmed as humans, when students get overwhelmed, when adults get overwhelmed, we shut down. Research isn't happening then. Creativity isn't happening then. The ability to come up with awesome solutions isn't happening then. And if a student is just experiencing like, okay, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, instead of a little bit of the other side of life, that rich, juicy, tell me more part of life. Hey, how are you doing? What brought you joy this week? Those are questions you can ask. And some of these questions are kind of bizarre to ask because they're not as common in our society, but you can ask them. You get to decide what your counseling office is, right? What your vibe is, regardless of what your school is. And your school probably has some incredible direction and frameworks. But beyond that, it's you, right? You are the special sauce. You are the person that your student will get to remember. You get to plant those little seeds of curiosity, of trust, of self-trust. They can tell, they're like, oh, I can see that my counselor is slow enough to have wonderful relationships because they slowed down enough to say hi to the person at the front desk, or they greeted another student in the hallway. Oh, look, they're having a snack and they're not on their phone. Mind blowing. It's okay if you're on your phone, but it's incredibly shattering to people when you take a break without your phone. You're just present, just looking around, giving your body a moment to settle. And this is another really, really useful thing that you can impart on your students. And really, you can just do it by doing it yourself and letting them watch. And you can verbalize it too. Show them how to come back to their bodies. When we are in our heads, we are on our phones, we can really lose the connection to our physical body. And all of those anxieties, all of those feelings, we're not giving them a chance to talk. We're not giving ourselves a chance to listen to what our body needs and work through them. So do grounding. When people see me, they say, wow, you grounded. And I don't know exactly what it is that they see, but I know for sure that I ground myself. So it's apparently working. And I do it because it helps me, but also because when I'm around a client that has, referring to my work as a registered behavioral technician, RBT, I get put with clients that are usually nonverbal and have very severe behaviors. They could involve punching, stabbing, biting, things like that. When I sit comfortably with my shoulders back, just taking up space, and I come at them with curiosity, and I'm not acting like it's a crisis, my students relax. Their shoulders go down. They might be really scared. A lot of my students that I work with are really, really scared because I'm a new provider. They're uncomfortable in their school environment. They might not have slept well. A lot of them have trauma. And your students, some of them have traumas too, where their bodies are just on guard. And it makes learning hard. It makes relationships hard. And when we can show them, look, here's a human being who feels like they can slow down, where they can, take a sip of tea. That's the kind of environment where a student can really share and can be creative and can ask questions and can study for the ACT and crush it. The best successes that I have with my students are when I start the session and we do 15 minutes, 20 minutes of just talking about their week. We just talk about how they're doing, because when I know them, I can tailor my instruction. And then we'll do the ACT prep and we'll do the SAT prep, and I do one idea at a time and we check in. Did they understand it? No problem if they didn't. Not every student's going to learn at the same pace. Maybe I need to adapt my strategy. If I were to just barrel through it, and believe me, I've done this in the past, it didn't work well. But if I'm going slow, I can tell if it landed, and I can see by their body language how they're feeling. And sometimes I do a little meditation with them, and it's not something complicated, because I think the word meditation is very intimidating. Very intimidating. All I do is I set on my phone a timer, and for 1 minute, we close our eyes, and just notice our in-breath, breathing in. I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out. I know I'm breathing out. Try it. So much of our society just makes us so anxious, and it makes our bodies tense. Just doing that, even twice, just relaxed me. This is kind of nerve-wracking for me. It's the first time I've recorded a podcast and shared it out to the world. I know I want to do it, and I know I can do things that are new for me, but my body is still kind of, on edge. But there's so many things I can do as an empowered adult, as an empowered human being that has learned amazing skills over many years and many trials and error, to come back to myself and say, okay, what's this moment about? Can I be curious? Can I be present? Because I want to live my life. I don't want to just be reacting. I want to be providing value. I want to be meeting my students where they're at. If I'm not really in my body, I'm not really there with the student. And I don't expect perfection for myself. There's a lot of things that cause a lot of anxiety. But even just a little shift, even just a little moment of curiosity, just a moment of, yes, being weird, just to relax your body a little bit, or laughing or having some levity, just showing that it's not all about the end goal. It's about the process. It's about who we get to be as we figure out what our lives look like, right? That's the point for these kids. They're figuring out who they want to be. They're figuring out who they get to be, and they might look to you for permission. What if I want to maybe pursue this? Well, sure. Let's explore that. Not everything has to be a career. Not everything will be a career. And at the same time, I think a lot of kids need to know that there is space enough for everything they love. You can be realistic with them. And I think realism is not always the correct word, because for some students, one path might be extremely good. For some, we're all figuring out our path. Really, what I want to say is they will have to pivot at some point in their life. They might find something and it's a perfect fit for the rest of their life. Incredible. But how many people does that happen for? There's going to be something. Maybe they switch majors. Maybe they don't like their company. Instead of in that moment feeling like they did something wrong, they can think back to the conversations they had with you and be like, okay, my counselor said, hey, let's think about this. There's always options. What do you think? What does your intuition tell you? Well, let's do some research. Let's find out what information is there. Let's connect you to a mentor. Those are the kinds of skills that are going to serve them no matter how old they are, no matter what path they take. So yeah, that's the showing students that they get to trust themselves, and that there are people that they can bounce ideas off of and that can teach them something. Frankly, you have a lot to teach them. Let's see. I really hope this served you. And I'll be putting out more episodes focusing on different things, specifically about the ACT and the SAT, how you can support students even outside of, directly doing close one-on-one tutoring, giving them guidance, how to choose which test to take. Overall expertise from the test, what I've learned, what really holds students back, or what powers them to a really amazing score improvement, like 3 points, 5 points, 10-point score improvements. I'll be sharing a lot more about how to work deeply and effectively in a way that works long term for your nervous system, because you deserve to feel powerful. You are powerful. And the more that your students get to see that in you, the more they will be absolutely inspired to live their own empowered lives. So thank you for hanging out with me, and I will talk to you next week.